You've entered the realm of rooted cosmic soul storytime. Welcome to the Tales of LEAF and Lillian, the story of beginnings. A short journey by D.B. Vasquez, journeys 1 through 4. The destiny of Earthseed is to take root among the stars. Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower. Journey 1. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Harriet Tubman. On the morning of Leaf's 29th birthday, she awoke thinking about the energy of the physical and the energy of spirit. Reared with an awareness of both, she had been wondering recently more deeply about the essence of energy. Is it sentient? Does it have intentions? Does it move and exist outside of her body and her thoughts? When does the energy of the physical and the energy of spirit move together? And when do they move separately? How does energy move in unison with physical observation and ethereal feelings and appreciations? You see, she was interested in the harmonic movements of molecules navigating through space and time. She thought it a wondrous thing, and Leaf had her mind set. She would get a glimpse into what was, and what may be again when we look. Tell our spirit eyes, there it is. Do you see it? Take a deep belly and lungs full breath. Now feel it. As she sat and let this stillness fill her, these ponderings consumed her thoughts. She was unsure how to further peel back the layers and more heartfully explore them, working on sensing everything in an allowable way, offering energy the possibility to just be, to be seen, to be felt, to be engaged, loved, and moved through unconditionally. Leaf could feel there was something on the horizon, like a memory being held. Cupped and secure, just waiting to be tipped into her crown. A connection waiting to be rooted, longing to be remembered and regarded. Her whole self sensed these rememberings. Visions of a cauldron, its contents swirling and emanating multicolored flames, visited her brow almost daily these days. It beckoned her enticingly. Yes, something was on the horizon for sure. Something, or perhaps someone, would be arriving soon. With her abuelitas of many generations energetically present, she sat for their usual early morning convergence. Since it was new moon, they were especially attentive and eager to engage her curiosity, expressing itself via incessant questions. Leaf didn't exactly understand the undercurrent, but on this serene and still morning, she was filled with an almost overwhelming ache of curiosity about how physical existence flowed before her people evolved. How did they come to breathe, move, and experience life from an energetic perspective and position? Were there events that foretold the coming realization that physical death was merely a celestial birth? That energy, whether in humans, plants, land, or water, never dies? That it simply changes, evolves, and shifts? Leaf's abuelas regularly shared with her their stories and memories about the process of practicing the alignment of full body energy and the unseen expressions of life that surround the physical experience. The stories of the great white bark awakening were passed on to her many moons ago. Tales of how her early tribeswomen ancestors were called to their beginnings, breaking shibboleths, subsequently forming an unbreakable bond with their immanent power, spirit ancestors, and the land. Remembering how to nurture their connection to the unseen and intentionally regarding these expanding beliefs. This perspective, passed on to her lineage many moons ago, was now an intricate part of Leaf's awareness and intentions. She knew the stories of the cycles of alignment that her ancestors experienced. It wasn't as it is now, where spiritual existence is far more understood, engaged, and cared for as an actively practiced tenet. She knew the stories of the trees, but on this new moon, she felt the need to better understand the story of the seeds. How did her earliest ancestors sow the realizations of this connective tissue? A flowing and forever growing cosmic-wide energy force seeking its home. Continuously drawn back to her present reality's nascent beginnings, Leaf wondered, was there one person in her family line, or was it a group who first understood, acknowledged, and engaged their connection to this ever-growing cosmic-wide filamental energy calling them in? She wanted to experience the wisps and grains of the winds and sandy beaches that foretold their coming evolution. What emotional sensations filled their physical experiences when finally realizing celestial births and the changes this would have on ensuing generations? What happened that created the necessary soil for a new foundation of beliefs and subsequently a shift to their ways of being and connection to everything? What was it like for the first time to move in the understanding that life force is energy and energy never dies? Or feel the abundance of non-physical forces surrounding, holding, and expanding reality? She did not know why, but Leaf felt immensely compelled to explore and engage these beginnings. A deep and old piece of her knew. This need to understand why she was feeling this was part of the unfolding. The way for energetic forces to see if she was paying attention. She was worthy simply because she was born. This she knew, but not what else was required of her. So she sat just a little longer this particular morning with new moon to make an additional offering, to be reciprocal in her ask to know. She first offered to her energetic lineage some time to feel what it's like to experience the bounty of this world from physical form. After sitting with her light holders, Leaf settled in for additional stillness, releasing a planned schedule, and opened herself. As the wind softly rushed through the sitting gazebo, where her stillness and her surroundings coalesced, she breathed it in and allowed every nerve ending to take in and feel the wind on her skin, across the tip of her nose and earlobes. Leaf, since her deliberate conception in the womb and upon physical birth, had always known how to engage her ancestors as far back as 3 generations, and on rare occasions with those of her lineage yet to cycle through again. With great intention and focus, Leaf sat in the sitting gazebo most of the daylight, letting all of her physical experiences flow from her to the energetic web of life. When the sun peaked and then peeked over Turtleback Mountain, she opened every pore to drink in its rays, letting it warm and envelop her. The smells of Titiabungo's green meadow chowder tickled her nose, and she breathed it in, allowing the essence of every plant, flower, and root offering its energy to the chowder to flow through and over her. Perceiving surroundings through physical senses was a distinctively corporeal experience and no longer available to those dwelling in the spirit world. Leaf offered her forebears this gift. As each sensation came to her, she simply noticed, appreciated, and passed it on. She sat, received, and made offerings until she felt so moved to move. Dust drifted in, and Leaf's mind wandered back to the ancestor life force cycles of many millennia past. Her thoughts returned to pondering what it was like hearing of celestial births after such a long time of only knowing the universe in material form. She imagined that previous experience to be a boxed and bounded existence. As the sun set, the black night of new moon began to settle in and over her. "You are never one to disappoint, Leaf," said Titi Lillian. "I commend you for your offering. A day-long sit on your 29th of this cycle's first new moon. We are pleased with you and by you. Come, stretch your legs and walk with me." Leaf opened her eyes, noticing someone had placed a birthday shawl around her. They had also set in the western corner of the gazebo fresh water for her face and throat. In the eastern corner sat a small basket of fruits and nuts. At the threshold facing south, sprinkled silamint leaves. She stood up and raised her arms to the sky and then turned to the west, quickly eyeing Titi Lillian, who smiled with affirmation. Leaf walked over to the water, cupped her palm, and in a swift, quick motion sprinkled it over the edge of the gazebo. As it landed, she whispered, "I remember and regard." She then took a drink and felt its nourishment and love for her move from lips to tongue to throat and then down her insides. Her essence and the water became one. Leaf then stepped into the eastmost corner. She peeled an orange-colored fruit called a rivulet and nibbled on a piece, smiling. She took the peelings in one of its sections, closed her eyes, and whispered, "To you, Nushu, spirit of water and protection, I offer this in love and abundance." And she tossed the offering into the creek that ran along the side of the gazebo. The wind picked up just so. Titi Lillian beamed and glowed a beautiful amber color. Leaf then ate the rest of the rivulet and a handful of berries. Something told her to put the nuts in her pocket. At the threshold of the gazebo, Leaf picked up the silamint leaves and rubbed her body from the bottom of her feet to the top of her crown, stepped out, looked up at the coming night sky, raised her silamint leaf full hands, walked over to the gazebo's side fire, and tossed in the leaves as she said, "For the ancestors who have come, are to come, and who stay away. Ashe." Journey 2. You carry all of us in your heart. We shall live in every breath you take, every incantation you speak. Tomi Adeyemi, children of virtue and vengeance. "We are ready, Padawan," Titi Lillian said with excitement, appearing again right beside her. "You really love calling me that, don't you, Titi?" said Leaf as she laced her walking sandals. "Oh yes, it is a name my great-aunt called me, and her great-aunt called her. It was a term that was never really understood, but a long, long time ago, in a land far, far, far away, it was a name with great endearing use. It elicited great focus and love for spirit. Most of our people of that time did not truly understand its luminosity. Its depth, its frequency eluded them. They used it because they thought its meaning. It took many moons for us to feel its weight and importance," Titi Lillian said. Looking out at the wind's breeze softly rustling over the vegetable paddock, she shifted, the corners of her lips ever so slightly turning up, eyes shimmering, a sign she was now looking in at the rustling of her own soul, and continued, "The act of moving together, passing over and down knowledge and love? What more is there?" Leaf knew this look and tone. It was not a question to be answered, but to be pondered and held. Leaf followed Titi Lillian as they walked north toward the river. As was their practice, they walked in silence, allowing for the sounds around them to offer blessings for their passing. Terra firma, plants, trees, stars, and the wind carved out energetic space, marking the path forward. With the moon darkly shining in its own light, surrounding stars lit up the night sky. They approached their astrological coordinates, and Leaf could see those very stars playing with the moon's reflection of its fullest self. "Sit there." Titi Lillian pointed to a large, flat boulder set almost in the middle of the river. Carefully yet sparingly positioned stepping stones led out to where she gestured. Star particles danced with the river's foaming rapids, and Leaf did as she was told. When she arrived at the boulder, she noticed in its shadows markings of some kind on its surface. The boulder dipped in the middle, designed to hold sitting human buttocks or physical offerings of any sort. When Leaf placed her hands on the edges of the boulder to settle herself down, she felt additional etchings under her fingertips. As she situated herself, the boulder bobbed ever so slightly. It floated there unattached, but did not allow itself to move from that spot in the middle of the river. Leaf was elated. She loved experiencing magic. Not the magic of her earliest ancestors, when to commune with the unseen, their imagining, creating, and fostering were called spells, incantations, and sometimes even delusions. The magic of now, the remembered and regarded, the imagining, creating, and fostering of connection to and with our energetic beginnings, one's own energetic beginnings, and that not of one's own. An intentional and manifested bridge invoking alignment with Source, manifesting connection with the flow of divine cosmic energy. It thrilled Leaf's most sensitive and curious parts to hold physical space with a deliberate entwining of elements meant to entice harmony and balance between a state of being and a state of doing. She looked up at the sky and exhaled. "I am grateful." She looked down at the river water and nodded her admiration, and turned her eyes to the river's edge. There stood Titi Lillian, a smoke-like silhouette more than usual, as she began to connect even deeper with the spiritual energy around them, bringing in balance with the physical energy of the forest, river, and sky. "Close your eyes, our dear sweet Padawan Leaf," said Titi Lillian. Wisps of river rapid spray surrounded and held Leaf where she sat. She let her lids fall, and as her people have been doing for millennia, she quickly moved into her mind's eye and eased further into her energetic essence. The movement of the boulder swayed her into a deep, melodious trance. "Hello, Leaf. Took you long enough." Leaf opened her eyes. She stood on a bright, sunlit, white sand beach. Turning to her right, ready to walk this amazing beach, she noticed her abuelitas, Lieja, Esther, Addie, and Filomena, all now well past their celestial births. The 4 grandmothers that she was named after stood there sparkling in the sunlight. With just a hint of advisement and mostly playfulness, they said again in unison, "Yes, Leaf. Took you long enough." Mama Lieja said, "I bet that you would have asked for this more than 10 years ago. I didn't think you'd be ready for a few more rotations." Mama Addie winked as she brushed Leaf's cheek, and their energy bubbles mixed. Leaf could feel Mama Addie hugging her, smelling her well-known nut pie, a recipe still followed today by Leaf's Mama Cora. "I foresaw you asking just as you did, mi querida," said Mama Esther. Smiling so bright, her entire essence reflected a rainbow from red at her feet and a perfect brilliant indigo at her face. "She's ever so proud of herself," chuckled Mama Filomena as she nodded at Mama Esther. "I chose not to guess at all. I figured you'd ask when you asked, and that's that." Leaf was used to Mama Filomena being the least touchy-feely of all her name-bearers, yet her comment warmed her too. At that moment, she felt the water of the ocean rush over her toes. Leaf looked down as the end of a wave was receding back into the ocean to rejoin its collective whole. caressing her toes before doing so. The water and the sand were so warm, warmer than she had ever experienced. "Where are we?" asked Leaf. "Where do you think we are?" asked Mama Esther in return. Leaf scanned her surroundings. To her left, the ocean water, a myriad of deep blues, rocked and rollicked far off in the distance. Closer to her, the crystal clear aquamarine water was calm and serene. There was a small island a few kilometers off the coast, mostly green grass behind its deep, brown, rocky shoreline. The contrast of the dark brown soil with green grass to the clear cerulean ocean made it almost too pretty to gaze upon. The sand at her feet was soft but firm under her steps. The water rushed over her toes, reminding her of the fresh water in the stream at home, though she could feel this ocean's salty content on her skin. To her right, as the beach sand moved inland, she saw a forest of bounteous greens and an abundance of shadows. She could smell the dampness of leaves returning to earth and felt the energy of something too big for her to yet understand brimming from behind the tree-topped canopy. Without too much thought, she sunk into her senses and continued to walk, looking back and forth, left to right. "I don't know what it is my eyes see, but I know what it is my heart feels," said Leaf. Mama Filomena showed the slightest smile and asked, "What does your heart feel?" "It feels like home," replied Leaf. "But I've never been here. It's so much warmer and brighter, so different from our tribe's homeland." "This is where your people originated many cosmic cycles ago. Your physical progenitors called it Isla de Culebra," offered Mama Filomena. She continued, "This is where my fifth bisabuela's people were born. Her name was Ophelia. You are here, querida, to feel the origin story of Ophelia and Pyramid 11. From here on out, Mama Esther, our strongest seer and energy holder, will walk you through the process to access the story of our people's beginnings. Well, one of them anyway." She winked. "The story you are now so immensely compelled to explore, of the exact moment when our people transitioned from merely physical existence to our initial spiritual energetic leaps in being and belief." Mama Addie added, "As you walk, you will delve further into your unconscious. We will all be here with you in essence, but you will only see and hear Mama Esther. You can call on any of us at any time, and we will make ourselves visually present for you. You will be traveling deep into your bloodline's collective well of being. It is a great deal to hold. We will be here fostering space with you, so that you may delve into the beautiful dark that is our," she pointed at herself and the other abuelas, "true home." The abuelas encircled Leaf and held hands. Titi Lillian nodded and gave her the look that meant, "We shall continue if there are no more questions at this time." "Leaf, keep walking and simply head in any direction you feel moved to. With each step, you will further deepen the trance state your being is already in, continuing to move out of your physical body and more fully into where everything is everything. In this, space-time is not linear. What you feel is more important than what you believe you may see. Walk and we shall follow," said Mama Esther, and then she bowed her head. Mamas Lieja, Addie, and Filomena, and Titi Lillian slowly disappeared from Leaf's vision. With great comfort, she could feel that they were all still with her. With this knowing, she began to walk with her heart in the lead. Journey 3. You are not stuck in an endless loop of healing. The healing journey is an ascending spiral, not a circle. You must continuously come back to the things you thought you understood, so that you can experience different forms of ascension and realize how much you've grown. The Oracle reads you. Mama Esther asked, "Leaf, where are you right now?" "I am walking on this beach, a place called Isla de Culebra," she answered, a little perplexed. Hadn't they just discussed that? Mama Esther asked, "Leaf, where is your physical body?" Leaf adjusted for a minute, surprised that she could not quickly remember. She searched the energy around her till she felt the dark sky, the rolling river, the swaying rock. "Yes, that's right. Hold all of you simultaneously. You are moving into spirit in the realm of nonlinear space-time. It is important to hold all of your surroundings, even if and as the spiritual sphere entices you more. Some have gotten lost in the in-between, returning fully to their physical state after a great deal of time has passed. But don't worry, we will be here for as long as you need, and we will remind you, if necessary, of the safety and nourishment needs desired by your physical body," offered Mama Esther with a reassuring smile. "What would you like to do next?" she asked Leaf. "Well, my first feeling is to take a moment to offer some of this warm and beautiful spiritual energy to the land and water holding my physical body," answered Leaf without hesitation. Mama Esther smiled and nodded. "Lady Lillian is teaching you well," she said, brimming with delight. Leaf closed her eyes, focused on spiritually collecting some of the energy swirling around her on the beach. When she felt she had enough for an offering, she transported herself back just enough to sense her physical body and the rock in the middle of the river. Without opening her eyes, she eased her shoulders back a bit and visualized the ocean energy collected, shooting up and out of her heart chakra, onto the land, water, and rocks. In response, the wind picked up and the river water splashed her cross-legged thighs, in appreciation and acknowledgement of the gift offered and received. Leaf opened her eyes. Once again, she was on the beach. She looked up and felt compelled to walk toward the sun as the ocean water continued to intermittently hug her at the ankles. The sun warmed every inch of her skin. Never before had she felt such a hot sun. It was invigorating and comforting. They walked in silence, Mama Esther at her side. Before too long, Leaf squinted. Off in the distance, she saw what looked like giant snakes curling out of the forest and onto the beach. Whatever it was nestled under a great big canopy of leaves from a tree growing at the edge of the forest. The tree lived two lives, partially in the open sky at the ocean's shore. Its branches and leaves jetted up and out, reaching for the sun and water. And simultaneously in the covered sky of the forest, its branches blanketed and leaves digging down and in, reaching for terra firma and water. When they reached the tree, it wasn't snakes they found, but huge roots crawling atop and diving below the sand and shore. Some of the roots were so big that Leaf could, if she wanted, crawl beneath them and be sheltered from wind, rain, or sun. Instead, she ran her fingertips slowly along the surface of the closest root, pressed her palm down, and felt an instant beckoning. "This way, Mama Esther. We go this way." Leaf motioned into the forest. "But first," she said, turning toward and bowing to the salty ocean water and glistening sunlight. "Thank you," she whispered. Leaf climbed over the roots and walked deeper under the canopy of bright, sun-drenched leaves, into the forest with the ocean at her back. There were so many physical, energetic expressions of green calling her in. She initially strolled slowly, not wanting to miss anything. A multitude of life in evergreen, pine green, mint green, emerald green, moss green, hunter green, sage green, olive green, fern green surrounded her. Nama Green and Leaf felt and saw it. It was all so lushly beautiful. With every step, the forest floor filled in. The sunlight peeking in became less and less until she was completely surrounded by forests, trees, leaves, branches, and dirt. The further she stepped, the denser the forest became, yet she never wanted for space nor felt constricted. The forest moved with her, and she with the forest. Taking in everything around her, Leaf walked until she came to a crossroads. She could move forward, to the left, to the right, or backward, back to where she came. All paths felt right to her. At this juncture, she took a deep breath and focused to seek and feel clarity. She closed her eyes and asked the forest for guidance. When she opened them, in the corner of her eye, she noticed something sitting on her shoulder. Only mildly startled, she turned her head. It was a butterfly. "I am Dido," Dido told Leaf enthusiastically, flapping her moss-green wings. She flew up and in front of Leaf's face. "Follow me," she said. Dido fluttered excitedly toward the path on the right. As she followed, Leaf noticed only the undersides of the butterfly's wings were green, the tops a beautiful, rich, dark chocolate brown. Leaf followed Dido deeper into the forest. The three, Dido, Leaf, Mama Esther, traveled step by step together, admiring the magnitude of life that flourished in this stunning forest. From the physical life of the roots, trees, moss, flowers, woodland creatures, to the immense non-physical energy of the buzzing, humming, pulsating, vibrating. It did not matter that there was no sunlight or starlight. Leaf could feel everything around her, in its parts, its pieces, and its whole, affording her better sight than solely using physical eyes. Their journey into the forest could in no way be discussed using physical pronouncements in any way. Mama Esther remained silent. Not a word was uttered as they wandered, but their energies were in constant contact, conversing at length about the wonders around them. Eventually, the path came to an end at what looked like a massive, mountainous tree trunk. The trees on her left and right, though smaller in size, were close-knit and impassable. On her left side, she could see a forest spider the size of her hand, its long sable legs arched high, sitting quite still and at attention. It was watching, waiting. For the first time since entering the forest, Leaf looked at Mama Esther for guidance. "You stand here, your feet planted atop plants, your understanding rooted to this path. As in all things, an act of reciprocity is required to activate spirit and necessary to pass forward." She pointed at the massive, impassable trunk directly in front of them. There were no trees, no leaves or creatures or a rainbow of green, just what appeared to be a rich, deep-browned, impenetrable, asomatous boundary. Mama Esther continued, "Offerings come from where, truly?" Leaf needed only to think a split second. From our thoughts, to our feelings, to our energetic expressions. Mama Esther affirmingly nodded. "You are close," she said, and then closed her eyes in contemplation and waited. Leaf further considered her answer. She mulled over the different choices before her. She thought, well, yes, it is true that offerings come from our thoughts, to our feelings, to our energetic expressions. But what's beneath that? There's more there. That was only the beginning of the answer. Mama Esther waited patiently as Leaf expanded and explored her experiences to find a more precise response. She delved into her thoughts. At first, her energy traversed moments while in solo meditation, yet that moved her further away from a sufficient answer. She adjusted, took a deep breath, and channeled her tribe, remembering moments of shared joy. And then immediately there it was, It's not about the idea of thoughts, feelings, energy. It's the feeling that is underneath it all. The essence that binds all of this together, that binds all of us together. It's love. She warmed and smiled. It is love, she said. Offerings truly come from love. Yes. And in what is the utmost calibration of love? Asked Mama Esther. Leaf felt the answer before she whispered it, more to herself than to Mama Esther. Alignment through actualized self-love. In that moment, she knew the path forward would open itself only after she was in alignment with pure, unconditional love. She knew the only way there was unfettered self-love for her parts, pieces, and whole. Love was not merely a physical or vocal expression. Love was pure energy. Its true, complete offering was born from our love for ourselves, from our understanding that we are each birthed into the physical world worthy. This deep alignment with love's energy would expand her own spiritual and energetic force, offering love in alignment with the multitude of energies around her. She had to offer it unfettered and unattached. An offering of my alignment. I must align with the cosmos to move forward, Leaf said aloud. Journey 4. When you put love out in the world, it travels, and it can touch people and reach people in ways that we never even expected. Laverne Cox. Simultaneously, she stood in spirit while she sat in body. Centering and focusing, Leaf delved more inward and gradually offered up her quiddity. First at her toes, seeing the land's core, deep and churning, mixing, shifting in dark delight. Moving it into her feet, and then up her shins and calves. Around her knees, it wrapped her like a cocoon, moving up further, over her thighs. At her root, she felt it enter, and with gratitude she imagined the brightest, deepest, menstrual blood red color, and entangled it with the planet's black lava offering. She felt the ground beneath her start to rumble. She moved the energy up still further to her belly button as she felt its cleansing effect draw near. It felt like a jet black fireworks sparkler ignited, emerging from the depths of the planet, tickling her toes. She relished in it. Synchronicity unknown and anciently familiar, she opened herself to it without reservation. Her toes tingled as it continued to slowly move through her ankles, calves, knees, and thighs. It inched up the lower trunk of her body as the sparkling turned red in color. She embraced this evolution and envisioned a vibrant and fiery blood red. Immense stability, security, and strength charged her with purpose and passion as it progressed upward, turning orange. She imbued joy, sensuality, and playful fascination. Creative determination and infinite possibilities saturated her adrenal glands, emotional needs alchemizing and transmuting themselves as she further opened herself to the sparkling effects. It traveled toward her abdomen and thorax, a brilliant yellow, consumed leaf. Contentment and happiness permeated every cell of her body, releasing all anger and frustration masked and hidden within. Fully consumed, her body glowed green, submerging her spirit in growth, harmony, and love. She remembered the journey through the forest and all the various green representations her eyes beheld. She asked her life force to translate it, to take it in even more. She audibly laughed, feeling refreshed and safe, her being harmonized into a vibrant aqua green. As it approached her neck, the sparkles wrapped her in a blue calm. She felt open and more like Leaf than she had ever sensed before. Her trust that she was exactly where she needed to be heightened, and her throat released a low, melodious caw. It inched up her throat, leaving intuitive and psychic downloads seeking to cultivate and enhance her connections with the divine. Her head and face transformed into deep indigo. There was a whisper present inside of her, and it kept repeating, "I know I am divine. I know I'm a spiritual being. I choose deep awareness. I consciously choose love." In that moment, her spirit glimpsed the path forward. Filled with neither impatience nor fear, she was balanced and open. She engrossed and absorbed the indigo. It wrapped itself through her hair, eyelashes, and eyebrows. Her lips quivered, and she sensed herself licking them. She tasted just the hint of salt water. Suddenly, it burst through her crown, as if her body itself was the sparkler, releasing gold and purple flecks. Her arms high and raised in the sky, her legs spread, feet firmly planted until she floated, an arm's length from the forest floor. Streaks of lightning shot out of her feet, hands, and head. She whispered, "This is my offering, my complete alignment." When her feet touched the ground again, her body and spirit glowed deep black, and she shimmered tiny moon-white flecks. Leaf opened her eyes to see the path forward, mimicking her own coloring, offering in return the blackest and most beautiful, energetic, swirly mass. Moving, thrusting, vibrating as it opened. "Ashe," she said, and stepped in. This concludes our current installment for Leaf and Lillian, the story of beginnings, journeys 1 through 4. Thank you for taking this journey with Leaf. What happens in that moving, thrusting, vibrating, energetic, swirly mass? Well, if you want to know, stay tuned for Journey 5, arriving once time gives its blessing. This is Rooted Cosmic Soul Storytime. Unfettered and infinite love and gratitude.